Okay, everybody. I wanted to get started. I know we're running a little late. I'm not sure Kevin is still here, but Kevin ran over time, so it's all his fault. Welcome to our session about that's titled "Bring Your Own Device and Make It Work for IT." We actually have a funny incarnation of that. So the thing that you're here buzzing in the end is we brought our own device, which is that server that they're desperately trying to make work. So if we're lucky, then we'll have a couple of demos in the end. My name is Michel Rood. I work for Quest Software. I work in the product management department. I'm also, I wouldn't say a BriForum veteran, but I've been here before. I've presented without my company making me present. This time they're making me present. I'm a terminal server MVP or RDS MVP, and I'm also a V-expert. And I have with me today, as you all know from the Geek Out yesterday, Quest bought ChangeBASE. And the guy that I have the pleasure to co-present with is the man in the corner, Greg, who co-founded ChangeBASE. So he will give a demo and tell you a little bit more about ChangeBASE and the way we use it in Quest. So the general agenda is I'll tell you about the user workspace management vision and business unit that we have within Quest. Then Greg will show you some ChangeBASE magic. And if the demo gods are with us, we'll do a vWorkspace 7.6 preview, because that's not our shipping version yet, but we wanted to give you guys a little bit of a preview. And also, at the end for the best question, I have the Brian Madden book that we can give away. It's a little special because it's signed by Brian and everybody that wrote the book. You may or may not know, but Quest co-sponsored the book, and the last chapter is written by my boss. So he makes me give this away. The idea for this session and the way I'll talk about it is how the bring your own device trend and how the consumerization of IT has changed. Well, for me personally, the way that I look at product management and about the products that we have in our BU. So it's not a product pitch entirely. I know this is a vendor session, but I've tried to make it fun for me, and I also want to encourage dialogue. So if you have any questions, stop me and ask me, and we'll discuss it where we can. So my boss isn't in the room, so I can say this. He was supposed to be here, but this is the guy I work for. This is my son. He's a little bit older now, but this was when he was 1. He's 2 now. But so this slide is intended for one to kind of make fun of my boss a little bit. Since he's not here, it's easy. He's a big baby. But the other thing is that this is my first child, and he amazed me because before he was 1, and it's not because he's really clever, because I'm his parent, but before he was 1, he could use the iPad, right? So he could unlock it and go to the icon that makes him happy and do stuff, and that got me to think that the way the market that we are trying to service with our user workspace management business unit in Quest is for the new generation, I guess. They call them the Y generation, or the digital consumer, or the digital native, or whatever you want to call it. But this is a prime example. He's a taker, right? So he consumes the information or the application that he wants at that moment in time, right? So I know there's been many discussions about consumerization of IT. Where you see the balance that 10 years ago when we provided people with a terminal server session, this is your terminal server session, it's completely locked down, and this is what you're allowed to do, and you'll do it because that's your job. Whereas now there's the other end of the spectrum where people demand more, and I want this app, and if you don't give it to me, I'll go out and find it myself. I do think that there's a tremendous amount of talk about consumerization of IT, bring your own device, whatever you want to call the trend, but that there's for once in the industry, we're a little early to the trend. I think that the technology is earlier now than the actual implementation, if you like, of the trend in businesses. Maybe it's a regional thing. Quest is a global company, right? So we do business in the US, we do business in EMEA, and Brian and Jack and Gabe, they have their consumerized IT website, where they talk about the future and how IT will change. What I've seen from the EMEA perspective, and this is the EMEA version of BriForum, there's a lot of talk about it, but not every single company I speak to, not every CTO I speak to has the intention to have anybody bring in any device they want, have Dropbox everywhere and monitors. So there's many products that are ready to do it, which I think is good. Usually we're behind the trend, right? If people decide that they want to use a certain device, then usually we hook up like a year later or something. And it seems like this time we're a little bit in sync, so IT is ready or close to getting ready. But I'd also think that the future, maybe that shows that I'm not a complete visionary, but I think it's really hard to see. If you look like 10 years ago, or not even 2 years ago, I don't think there was that much talk of, the way we speak about consumerization of IT now. I think it was very little. Maybe, there was the intent of having people be able to work from many different devices. So you might have had, a laptop, or, some people might have an iPad, but it wasn't as broad as now. There's been a true explosion, a real explosion of devices and change in mindset and applications and stuff like that. So, in the future slides, I'd want to talk about the way that we see the market evolving, and use my son as an example, where I think he would go as a person that works for a company, so as an employee. So what would he use in the future? Basically, I think that if you look ahead, at some point in time, the end user, or the IT consumer, I guess that's a better way to say, basically uses any device he can get his hands on, right? I was at a conference on Monday in the Netherlands, where I was talking to the CTO of a big school, and they did some internal research, and that the average student has 2.5 devices that he uses to well, not physically 2.5 devices, but in general, they have, on average, they have 2.5 devices that they use to connect to the network. So I think, if we look at it today, you might have like a laptop and an iPad and a phone. Some people don't have an iPad, so that comes up with 2.5. But even, I think, as long as 3 years ago, that would not be very common. So I made up some devices. If you look on the internet, there's like all these kinds of interesting prototypes for new devices. I know this one will be real. I think it's Google Goggles. That's not the actual product. I hope for Google that's not the actual product, but I'm sure that in a couple of years down the road, it will be completely normal for people to have like something like Google Goggles. I can't imagine it now, but it might very well be. So he'll use more. Maybe it's not even his device anymore. Maybe people share devices, or maybe the phone is not a phone anymore, and maybe it's just something you wear on your ear or something. Sounds weird, but maybe maybe it is. If it's 10 years out, who can tell? And when I speak about this from a product management perspective, we make plans for future versions of the user workspace management products, and you can't have like a 3-month plan or a 6-month plan or a year-long plan. You have to have a 3-year-long plan, or a 5-year-long plan, or a 10-year-long plan. But it's really hard to think about that and to be specific about it if the market is as dynamic as it is today. So that makes me ponder. Of course, I've completely made up the iPhone 8. I think we'll make it. The iPad 6, but Google Goggles is something that's real, that's going to happen. I'm sure Windows Phone is going to be a big initiative by Microsoft, and they make it go anywhere. Smart TVs. I know in the US it's fairly common. I think it's just starting in Europe. But maybe there'll be a smart TV in every room, and maybe it'll allow you to connect to your work desktop. Who knows? So that's going to be very important in the way that we develop our product. Connection also. So I'm a terminal server MVP, so I believe very much in the value of data center hosted application desktop workloads. So in human language, VDI internal server, and whatever is in between. So that does require a connection, but not just for your desktop workload or your application workload, but for anything in the future you need to be connected, right? If you're just running Facebook on your phone, you need a connection. So I think at that point in time, in say in Western Europe or Northern Europe or North America, I think in a couple of years' time, when my son grows up and becomes an employee, I don't think he'll really know the concept of online. I think he'll be online always, and he doesn't even know it. Don't think that it's, oh well, I'm roaming, or I'm in the car now, so I can't be on the internet. I don't think he'll even call it the internet. He'll just be doing what he wants to do. And there's all these beautiful technologies that are coming up. 4G is just starting in Europe. I get the idea, but the people are working on 5G. But they're always going to be connected, and we need to think about what does that mean, because today, really, we even have a special solution in the user workspace management BU that we've created for local managed instances of VDI, for example. Maybe the bulk of our market will never be offline if they don't want to. Maybe they can be if they want to, but maybe they'll never be offline. So that for us changes the way we have to look at stuff and keep that in mind. If I think about how many times I am online versus offline, it's pretty easy to tell because I'm useless if I'm offline. Like I'm sure many of you noticed that the internet connection here is interesting and the way you need to connect. Also, I'm not from the UK, so when I want to use the phone data connection, I have to roam, and that's where the telecom providers go, yay, because we can charge them $1 gazillion per megabyte, so my boss doesn't let me roam, so I'm disconnected. So that's when you notice that you're really reliant on that connection, and that's why I'm sure that the trend will be more and more and more connected versus less connected. So that's going to be very interesting for us to monitor to see how that changes in the future. So he doesn't connect. And what does he do? My son's favorite game is Angry Birds. By the time that he becomes an actual employee, I guess the Angry Bird becomes really angry because he's old. But that's not really what he does, of course. You should try that again and think what he does the most, right? When I really try to think about like him as the IT consumer of the future, right? The employee that if I'm 15 years older and I'm running IT for a certain company, I get his kind of people coming, his generation coming in, and I'm not the biggest social buff. I tweet. I hate Facebook, so I don't do Facebook. I'm not sure how long I can do it. My wife hates me for it because friends of mine know about what she does before I do. I'm not kidding. He's going to be a very social guy in that sense. What I mean by that is that he probably he doesn't even know that he's doing it, right? It's just his way of communicating. My brother-in-law, he also has kids, and they're like 14, 16. So you probably know. Some of you might have kids. You know how they're like in that age, and he gets very irritated with them because they're always doing this. And I think he's like 46 or something, so he kind of missed the whole mobile phone stuff and Twitter, and he's also not in IT. So I've had these discussions with him. He says, well, I hate them, and I'm going to tell them that they can't do that because he has to go out and play and physically be with his friends. And I try to explain to him the way that we view it, is that you're trying to to make them live in the past because that's what you think is normal, right? You're looking at what you know is normal, what you've experienced in the past, but you can't see what's ahead of you. So they're social, but they're social in a different way, right? It's not that he physically meets up with his friends and they stand out out somewhere and play loud music or something. He probably has more friends than you ever had. And he knows, and he's in contact with them more than you were. So is that good or is that bad? But you know, it kind of shows that it's very hard to look forward also from this perspective. And I've tried to, and I've made jokes that I think last week or the week before, it was either before Mark Zuckerberg married or after, but he also IPO'd Facebook in between for $1 gazillion or something. You know, maybe by that time they've bought the entire Nasdaq just to be done with it, and still only have like a $5 million profit. But I'm sure they'll do well. You know, I'm sure there'll also be a lot of new initiatives. I've tried to come up with some social networks that are popular. I know the H stands for Hives, which I guess is only the Netherlands, is a big social website. Xing, I think, is in Germany, is big. I think in UK it's just LinkedIn. But you know, there's a lot of these social networks that I'm sure they'll merge and you know, become even bigger, and there'll be new ones that we can't even think of. Personally, for me, when I first heard about Twitter, was that 5 years ago, 6 years ago or something, I thought, what the hell is this? It's an SMS and you post it online. But I didn't found Twitter, apparently, and so you know, that's the way it is, and that's what it's going to take to move forward. So it's really interesting for us to see where this will go if you look at the past, but also try to look at the future. And you know, what makes him happy is basically, and I know you won't say, but you recognize yourself. I know you do. I know I recognize myself. But you know, they want to work from everywhere, really. So you know, we talked about the devices they use. I tried to come up with like devices that don't even exist yet, and artwork of people that put their minds to it. But I'm sure we can't even think about it, right? And so, if I already today, you know, sometimes answer the occasional email when I'm in the bathroom, I'm sure that'll be like even more different in the future, right? My son takes his iPad or my iPad or my boss's iPad, really, everywhere. You know, it's on the plane, it's outside. You know, he jumps on it. I try to keep him from doing it, but you know, he uses it everywhere. And that's today. Imagine how that is like 10 years out. You know, what kind of device would you have? What displays would you have? Where would you work? Will there even be like the concept, you know, of an office? Maybe there'll just be, I don't know, some kind of online hub or something, or somewhere you can go there when you have a question about your salary or something, or where you first come in, or maybe, you know, I don't know. It's very hard for us to predict that kind of stuff, but it will impact for us the way we have to design our products for the future. So I think today we can see that it's, you know, this shows that we're uncertain of where it will go, because this is possible today, right? If you have a connection, you could basically work from anywhere you like. It's still traditional concepts compared to, you know, to 10 years ahead. Like you use a laptop or you use your iPad, or if you really want to, you can use your phone to be you know, productive. But you know, I'm sure that it will completely change. You know, again, the Google goggles thing. Maybe you'll be like that. Maybe you'll never have a screen. You'll just, you know, you'll only see the screen, and you'll think about what you want to do. Who knows? It's only 10 years out. I was amazed that I'm not much of a gamer, but some of my friends are, and they told me that you know, there was this thing for Call of Duty or whatever the most popular shooting game is, where you put a helmet on and you think about shooting somebody, and it happens. And you know, I was laughing because I'm thinking, because no, they don't work in IT and they wanted to impress me with a bullshit story. But it's true, the thing exists, and it's been there for 2 years. I'm like, what? I didn't even know that happened. So you know, maybe if the consumerization of IT thing is happening, and that particular thing becomes popular, maybe that makes its way into the business. Who knows? But it's going to be very hard to predict for us, because again, it's such an explosive time from a technology perspective in this particular space. It's going to be very exciting. So I also wondered, you know, what would work be to him, right? He, like I said, he's an IT consumer, so you know, when he wants information, he needs it like now. And you know, if IT doesn't give it to him, that's already today, more or less, right? If IT doesn't give it to him, he'll take it in whatever shape or form. Right? I'll look after myself. But at some point, and I think we can still see this. When he does his work for his boss, right? There'll still be some system where he needs to register, I know, whatever he sold or something, or there's a company intranet, or there's another application that he needs to use to perform his job, right? So at some point, and I think this will be true for a couple of years out, IT will have to provide the IT specific, so the company specific applications, right? The line of business applications that they need. So his work environment, whatever that looks like, if it's a desktop or a portal or whatever, will have a bunch of applications or information entry points that allow him to do certain things. And I'm sure and I'm positive that IT will have to help him or provide him with the tools he needs to do his job, right? And if we think of a tool needed to do his job as an application, then IT needs to look out for that. And he'll look to IT to get those, right? And hopefully IT will get him to him quick enough. But sometimes there's no way around it, right? He can't build his own inventory system for, I don't know, if he sells furniture, he won't be able to build his own, right? He needs IT to give it to them. So that's going to be, the IT won't be out of the picture, right? They'll still have some form of, legacy or classical responsibility to provide the applications for him needed to do his work. So when you think about it that way, so my son, he's working, he does whatever he wants, he uses whatever devices he wants, he's always connected. He has the iPhone 16 and he's happy. He has his Google goggles on. So you could think, what's there not to like? It's for the IT consumer, it's brilliant. You get to do whatever you want in the way you want it, as fast as you want it. But there's a bunch of stuff that's not to like, because if you talk to a CEO or a CTO and you explain this picture to him, they might recognize the wish for their employees to use any device and to have Facebook in their desktop and to tweet about everything and to have company paid multiple mobile phones and whatever you can think of. But this is actually a screenshot from a video that we created with Request on Microsoft that talks about desktop virtualization. It's actually pretty funny. But this part of the movie or part of the video talks about but then there's the aspect of management, right? So you kind of need a reality check, right? You can't on the one hand give the IT consumer everything he wants to be productive, and on the other hand, still be a IT manager or CTO that doesn't get fired. Because this vision of being able to do whatever you want as an IT consumer is going to cost so much money that the company either goes out of business or goes out of business. Because it's just too much money, right? It costs a lot to support, but there's also like indirect costs, like security, data security. How do you make sure many things that IT needs to look after, right? So again, they can't do everything because it's just simply going to be too expensive. It's not going to work unless you're like Facebook or something and you have 500 billion to do whatever you want. That's not the real world, at least not, I think, in the foreseeable future, right? So they need to, what we call, minimize cost and risk, yet provide a happy end user, right? And that's what we call, the user workspace, or IT manages the user workspace with all those different devices, connections, identities, application, platforms, versions, whatever. It's a true hub of different concepts and technologies that we call the user workspace. So IT manages it, and the user uses it. Kind of awkward, but it's maximizing flexibility for the end user while they minimize cost cost and risk, right? Because they're closely related for the IT department. And I quickly wanted to talk about the workspace solutions, so the solutions that we have in the Quest User Workspace Management BU, as we call it. Quest V Workspace, which I hope to do a demo of at the back end of this session, is our desktop virtualization product. So it allows you to virtualize your desktops and use terminal services in addition to present applications and desktops to your end user. In a complete nutshell, and we'll go into a little bit more detail. We have Quest VDI Assessment, which is a free tool that we provide to customers that allows them to inventory their environment. So you have it like running in your current environment. And when it's done, it'll present you with a report that says, this is what's going to happen if you're going to do desktop virtualization, or this is when you go to application virtualization, or TS, or VDI. That helps you assess your current environment and give you free advice on what happens if you choose to deploy XenApp, or vWorkspace, or VMware View, or whatever. And that's what we provide to customers to make sure that they make the right decision. Of course, we hope that you end up buying vWorkspace, but if you don't, okay, great. Then at least you've learned something. We have Quest Asset Manager, which allows you to get a wealth of information about all the devices you have in your network. So you might want to know how many iPads do I have out there, what's their version, how are they used, all that kind of stuff. That's what Quest Asset Manager allows you to do. Also very important. Quest ChangeBASE is the perfect tool to make sure that you perform your application readiness. Applications are constantly changing, and you need to make well-informed decisions about what would happen if I go to a new version of this application, and what if I go to a new version of the OS or to a new version of a browser. And Greg will be able to speak to that in a lot more detail. We have Quest FogLight for virtual desktops. So imagine if you have an environment where you've deployed 20,000 virtual desktops and you've used, 250 terminal servers and a bunch of Hyper-V hosts and a bunch of brokers to make sure that it all works. Then it's very important that you have a good oversight of what's going on in your environment. And that's what Quest FogLight FogLight for virtual desktops provides you with a dashboard. I'm not sure if you know FogLight or vFogLight, but it's all the same family. It's all the Quest product. Gives you an overview of your environment with all red, green, and yellow, and all those kinds of things. That shows you the health of your environment. If there's a problem, you can drill down to it, into it to see where the problem is, who's impacted, and how you can solve it. Then we have Quest Remote Scan, which is a very specific product that you can use in your desktop virtualization environment if you use scanners. And scanners are very special devices in a terminal server or VDI session, to be honest. And this product allows you to use it, driverless. It's very common for printing. It's not for scanning. And it also provides a lot of additional functionality that allows you to work with any kind of scanner, medical scanners, and all those other types of special devices that are especially abundant in hospitals. Then we have Quest QMX for Apple and Android. So QMX is a product family that extends System Center. So you have System Center Configuration Manager, and it by default, 2012 it changed, but it manages only Windows devices. These are extensions that allow you to have System Center manage anything. Right? So this is specific for Apple and Android devices. So you can manage your Apple device to make sure that it has a passcode, or that that you can remote wipe it, or you can make sure that I know that a certain application is installed or other application is not allowed to be installed. And that family extends outside of the user workspace management BU to have another set of extensions. You can manage anything from a Unix server to a network switch, all using System Center. So that's QMX. And finally, we have Quest Script Logic, which is a set of desktop management tooling that provides user workspace management and device management for both physical and virtual desktops. So all these products come together in the user workspace management BU to allow IT to manage that balance, because that's our biggest goal in doing so. So with that, I was hoping that I could get Greg to do the exciting stuff, the demo. Yeah, I think you need to have the laptop up here, right?
Should I come up as well? I'll show up, shall I?
Oh, okay.
We'll just pop this over here.
Just I have to give him a mic.
Great, thank you. Okay. Now let's just see if this whole Mac thing works, and everything's just supposed to work now, right? I'm gonna plug this in. Oops. Okay. I guess I'm the commercial break. Let's see. So yes, this Mac stuff works. I'm Greg Lambert, one of the co-founders for ChangeBASE. There was a Geek Out session mentioned yesterday.
Yeah.
I wasn't there. Did anybody know about ChangeBASE? Do you guys care? I mean, but we do app compat. Is that still a big issue, app compat? Does anybody know what app compat is? Maybe I should start. I'll pull back a little bit, right? Okay. Okay. So in the Geek Out session yesterday, I think some people were talking about application compatibility, right? So I call it app compat. We're doing migrations, we're doing virtualizations, we're doing this race to getting the latest versions of software onto different platforms. A couple of years ago, in fact, almost exactly 4 years ago, I was working with some directors from Microsoft, and we had an interesting conversation. And we're sitting down and going, okay, so what's the biggest issue for Vista at that point, and soon to be Windows 7? And they said, application compatibility. I went, hold on, wait a minute. If anybody knows what should break in a system, you guys are changing the platform, right? You should know what's going to break. And they said, no, we change the platform, but we don't own the applications. So everybody outside in the world is doing a bunch of stuff, right or wrong, and I just make sure I don't block that. And now what we're going to do, we're going to change things that they rely upon, and we don't know the impact. So we had to look around, and we thought, oh, okay, so we'll talk to some of our friends and people working in different industries, and we said, okay, actually this guy's got like 3,000 or 5,000 applications. How long would it take to manually test each one? So we're looking at it and going, well, what, 3 or 4 hours? Kind of a reasonable assessment, right? Not too bad. 4 hours on average times 5,000 apps is 20,000 hours, right? You can't do that now. So one of the things we started looking at and going, gosh, this is a big problem. So we went back to Microsoft and said, hey guys, you need to have a look at this. And they go, no, it's okay. We've got ACT, Application Compatibility Toolkit. Has anybody heard about that tool set yet? Okay, somebody in the back, right? Okay, 2 people. Is there a reason that people who know about ACT are in the back? Or is that just some sort of randomized demographics there? ACT takes a single application, you look at it, you run it, you test it, and you get some results. Roughly 4 hours. Again, we're back to manual testing, right? 20,000 hours for that example with 5,000 apps. We're going, guys, this doesn't solve the problem of what our organizations, every people you're working with, working for, are going to encounter come Vista migration, Windows 7 migration, soon Windows 8 migration. And so what we need to do is we need like something to automate this. And so what we did, we said, okay, we're going to take a look at this and go, what are the basic classes of issues for an application when it encounters a new platform, right? So we're talking about some basic stuff, right? It needs to install, we need to configure it, we're going to run it, we're going to update it, and we're going to uninstall it. So this life cycle approach to getting apps working, to take all that into account. And so we looked at that and go, actually, it's pretty well documented, actually. Microsoft does know if you have a driver, it's not signed, never going to work on 64-bit platform. That's it. Never going to work, right? If you have certain installation of security restrictions, that app probably won't install correctly. If it has certain UAC restrictions, user account control restrictions, it may not run correctly. So we're looking at all this stuff going, actually, you know what we can do? We can build some rules here. So what we did as an organization, we built a reporting and sort of a fixing platform. And we called it the ChangeBASE Workbench. Now, ChangeBASE, right? As we know, bought by Quest a little while ago. And so as a function of that, we said, okay, what we're going to do, we're going to take applications, we're going to load them into a database, and we're going to report upon them. And when we first started out, like, there's so much detail because we created all these rules. We have like 180,000 individual questions about how an app may fail upon install, config, run, update, or uninstall. And it were just as confusing. Like, we're giving our clients this big roll of data. Here you go. Didn't help them very much, right? Didn't help at all. So we did two things. We simplified it, and we used a very simple red, amber, green status. Red, which is roughly 5% for most organizations, means that app is not going to work. There's like a key piece of functionality within that app that just will never work, ever. You may not need that piece of functionality, but that piece won't work, so it's a red. Amber means with some work, you can make it work, right? So you got to do some tweaking, configuration, updates, get that done. Green means for the reports you've run, no issues raised. Okay, good stuff. So we went back to the clients, back to Microsoft, and went, haha, I got red, amber, green. Really helpfully went, this is fantastic, thank you very much. But now you've got, of the 5,000 apps, you probably have 2,000 apps that need to be updated, tweaked, configured, modified in some way. And we're going, yeah, bit of a problem, isn't it? So we went back, and we came back with a solution. We automated the fixing. So we worked with the engineers, the installer teams, a lot of our partners, a lot of people in the ecosystem. We rolled about 100,000 apps through the process, loading, reporting, and then this automated fixing process. And went back to their clients when you've got 5,000 apps. We're going to load them into a database. We're going to report upon them. We're going to show you red, amber, green. And we're going to press a single button, and we're going to fix it. All the issues, deploy to UAT. What do you think? At first, there's two things that happened to us. Nobody believed us, right? Guys said, what are you guys doing? This is insane, right? So you're going to take 40,000 hours of work, and you're going to compress it into, what, 3 days? I went, it's probably about right, yeah. Reasonable machine. You can run on my laptop, you can run on a machine. That's about right. I went, okay, well, I don't believe you, so we proved it, right? So that worked pretty well. We had another interesting little issue in the sales process, and this I thought was quite amusing. We tried to sell us stuff, right? We're going to sell us stuff, and I, as a salesman, I'm like, I'm never going to save you money, but I'll de-risk, right? Because I want you to buy my software. I'm not going to give it for free, right? So, but we're going to de-risk. We're going to crash the times for a project. We're going to automate it. We're going to give you a documentation trail like you've never seen before. We're going to increase the quality. This is fantastic stuff. And everybody's going, yeah? And I go, do you believe we can do it? Yes, we believe you can do it. Do you like the quality? Yes. Price? Good. Buy our software. And everybody went, no. And we couldn't figure out why. And so I went to the procurement officers, and I said, okay, so what's the problem? Like, you need this stuff. This is important. App compat is the single biggest issue for migrations today. He said, yes. So software address your needs and meet your requirements. Yes, yes. I go, why aren't you buying our software? And they said, because your software does this stuff so well. It's easy to use. Does the automation. Everybody agrees. It's obvious Microsoft is going to buy you tomorrow, and they'll give it away for free. So nobody was buying our stuff, right? They assumed that we'd just be bought by Microsoft, and they'd give it away as a free tool. So we had to tell everybody, no, that's not ever going to happen. Because Microsoft doesn't actually like interfering with the app ecosystem. They've got their own dev tool. But what we are focusing on, really, is the enterprise app space. It's not about Adobe Reader. It's about your internal line of business applications as well. It's about getting the whole portfolio. So what we had to do as well to get beyond that was actually not just talk about Windows 7. We had to talk about the virtualization story as well. We had to talk about the browser story. Because one of the things we found as you migrate from XP, you're actually migrating from a desktop native environment, 32-bit, and IE6. That's probably the starting point. You might be at variations of that, and you're moving to a desktop server virtual model, possibly 64-bit, with a virtualization slice in there as well, and a new browser. All these things are changing. And one of the things that hit us, we totally didn't expect this, is you might have a new version of Office as well. And one of the things you guys probably have been seeing over the last 10 years is that most builds now, or most applications, are assuming there's a version of Office on the desktop, assuming what place where it might be. So what I wanted to do, and it's a little washed out. Can everybody see this okay? Everybody see? We created this in a small tool. And what I'm going to do today is just walk you quickly through it. We're just going to do 3 simple things. I'm going to load some apps in, run a report, do some automated fixing. I'll show you all that. Is that all right? Everybody's okay with that? So, and we know about app compat, right? So app compat is now when you change something in the platform, you're going to break that app. Okay? Good, good. How technical is everybody here? Are we SEs or salespeople? Everybody sort of, we're at BriForum, so there must be some sort of interest in technology, right? Okay. Right. So here we go. Our software installs in 15 minutes, so it's actually less. In fact, what you can do is on a thumb drive, for most, when I do a demo, I usually give the software to a client. I go, here's the install. It's next, next, next. There's 3 processes, as you see at the top here. It's a little faded, but it's load it, run it, and fix it. There's only 3 buttons on our software. We try to get it to a single one. Haven't got there yet. Maybe the next version of ChangeBASE, maybe the next thing. We'll just have a solution button. But at the moment, we've got 3 buttons. Lots of switches and dials. One of the things we've recognized is if you're loading hundreds of thousands of apps into ChangeBASE, is that everybody has a different view on what an app is, how it should be configured, the construct of it. So one of the things, it's actually a loading, reporting, fixing platform. I'll come to that in a bit. And as you can see here, I'm just going to scoot back a little bit over here. I've already loaded some applications into the system here, into the database, and I've already got some reports. And as a function of that, I actually ran some reports, and I got an old version of Acrobat here. And you can actually see some of the detail of the potential compatibility issues you might experience with this particular application. And what's cool about this is when we, and I'll show you how we do this, when we load applications in, we don't have to run the app. Because we're actually looking at the classes of issues that might impact on Windows 7 or AppV or on a browser environment. We don't actually have to run the app. We can actually go into the executable, get the headers, get the APIs, get the dependencies, get the structure of the installation configuration, and we can interpolate or extrapolate from that potential future issues. So as a function of that, on this laptop here, I'm using my little Mac here, we can probably load about 1,000 apps per day. So that's a crazy, crazy time, isn't it? 4,000 apps, 4 days. In fact, if we had a couple machines running, we had JP Morgan Chase, they had 16,384 applications. And they needed to ask, okay, when it's 64-bit compatibility issues, we've got Windows 7 compatibility issues, we've got some AppV compatibility issues we need to ask about. And what we did in the 4 days, they were long days. It was a bit stressful, right? It's a big number of apps. We loaded all those applications in the system and reported upon them. And it's just crazy, right? I'll show you how we do this. So these apps, already loaded, run some reports, as you can see here. And you can see some of the types of compatibility issues you might experience. Now, can everybody read this? No, in the back? If you're active at the back, I'll read it just 2 or 3 out, just make it clear for everybody. So a couple things, like it could be something simple, right? Like Active Directory setting in the package that stops it from working or prevents something else from working, right? You might have a driver, old style, never work. Printers won't work for the app. That's quite common. You might have like a networking or a COM or DCOM issue that prevents that app from ever loading correctly. And one of the things about this is you may have never found it before. It's one of the things that we had a couple really interesting challenges. Say, okay, Greg, you raised this Amber issue on this app. This app is in production for 2 years. It's fine. Why have you raised this Amber issue? And I go, well, you might not have used that piece of functionality which we've profiled and found out for you. So we can find more stuff than most people will find through manual testing. We'll do it in seconds as opposed to hours. So here's a good example of some of the questions. So the networking issue, you might have control panel configuration issues. So a few samples here. And of course, one of the things you can do is export all these results to a website or your web page here. And again, this is the Red Network agreements. Here's a Windows 7 report, and I virtualized that. Here's some of the issues you can fix. So one of the things we're quite conscious on is I have this sort of a life cycle of a report. It's receive it, thank you, put it on my desk, put it in my top drawer, next drawer, bin. That's sort of the life cycle of any report, right? I don't want a report, I want a solution. So one of the things we were always focusing on right now is making sure we can automatically fix the application. So everything we're doing here is with the goal of automatically fixing that application. Just a few summaries here. And of course, you can now see some bit more detail if you're interested. Basically, this is your data, right? So you take your applications, put them into a database. You should be able to access everything you need from that. And we make it all available. So we don't hold anything back. And one of my favorite reports is what I call a steering report or a profile report. You can have your applications on the left side, and on the right side, you can have an impact of each technology. So this stuff is great, right? So your boss says, okay, we're going to virtualize an environment. You go, okay, which environment with what virtualization technology, right? So you can actually say, these are great apps for Windows 7. These are great apps for 64-bit. These are great apps for ThinApp or AppV or whatever is best for your environment before you sequence, test, or like that. So you can actually prevent a whole bunch of compatibility issues from happening in your environment. One of the things we're seeing, actually, is what I call the V+1 sort of model. Most people start out with, we're going to virtualize, we're going to do AppV, but it's actually AppV plus one other, a little bit of ThinApp or SVS. So now we're looking at hybrid or sort of heterogeneous virtualization environments. So you have to know about both. In fact, latest part of the technology automatically virtualizes the application to any format you want. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay. So this. If you're good, if you're okay with time-wise, I'll just do a quick load an app in, run a report, and do some automated fixing. If there's any questions, we can definitely go through do that while we're running through here. So I'm just going to clear the results. And I'm just going to go to my desktop. Now, the loading process is fine, right? If you're a consultant, this is the best gig in the world. I'll show you why, right? So here we go. I'm going to take an application, drag it onto the ChangeBASE product, little folder here. Press the loaded button. You've got 1,000 apps. Take the root folder. It will parse through, match all the MSTs, MSIs, and MSP, all those packaged information. It's loaded in now. And then you go. You don't do anything. If it's 4,000 apps, you just wait a little longer. I'll get an extra machine. There is no effort. And as a consultant, I love this because that app is now in the database. It's been analyzed. I've looked at the header information, all the configuration information. It's pretty quick. So we're parsing all that information. We're not running the app. We're doing what they call static analysis. And this is great stuff. I had to do a gig. I was helping out with a county police in Miami. And basically, we're loading our apps in. So Miami's a great place to go in January, especially if you live in the UK, right? So this is one of the reasons why I was like, oh, I'll help out with that one. Yeah, it's good. So we showed up at 4:30 in the afternoon. My flight was delayed by 4 hours. I was supposed to be there. And literally, the guys said, okay, next, install your software, drag the root folder onto ChangeBASE, press the load button. Like, okay, so you're probably going to be here till 11:30. And I was like, no way, it's mojito time. Like, I'm leaving. Like, there's nothing for me to do. It just works. It will just load in thousands of applications. And what you can do now, you can actually just say, well, once it's loaded into the database, I'm going to run a report. So click the reports. And notice now, a little bit hard to see, but the loaded button's disabled. This software is made for people like me. If you can break stuff, I can break stuff, I will break this stuff, right? So this says, actually, the only thing you can do right now is run a report, nothing else to load, right? So what I'm going to do now is run it. And what it's doing is actually taking the header information, installation configuration, dependencies, all that information. We built 2 trees within the database, and we're examining them. And what we're actually doing is running thousands of rules on that particular application that may affect how it installs, configures, runs, updates, and uninstalls. So what they do, let's see if it's running here. Yeah, it seems to be running okay. 22 groups of rules. I think we're going to run a couple thousand rules on all this, right? So let's see what happens here. It's just finishing up. Okay. You can't see at the back. It's a little bit washed out, but it's 6 issues. So I've actually captured 6 amber issues. And this is good news, right? Because if it requires a little bit of work. Going to do this. So looking at the types of issues, I got an installation issue, I got a runtime issue, I got an update issue there, I got some other configuration things to worry about in this particular package. We've just completely analyzed this application for compatibility for Windows 7. Not too bad, eh? What's interesting about this is no opinions, right? It's not what do I think. It's like this is documented, controlled, and you can choose which reports you want to run. Who here is an expert in AppCompat? Am I the only one in the room? Yes. Right? Nobody wants to do this stuff, right? So how are your guys going to go do this? Who's going to learn, become an AppCompat expert? In fact, I think there's about 12 in the world. I know most of them. And so to get that experience, it's going to be tough, right? So what we're going to do, this is the issue before, right? We've got this really complex issue. We've found the problems. We're going to drill down and say, ha-ha, let's go have a look at this particular issue. Now, it's a little cryptic, right? Like, okay, I've got this issue. It's not going to run in the right security context. We need to swap it somehow. We need to do some binary math, update the package, reseal it, zip it up, create a transform. We're done, right? Simple. Right? But not many people know how to do that. If you're really good and you're experienced and you've practiced, you can probably fix that issue manually in about 45 minutes, right? Get the whole thing together, some automation tools, do all that. But we've actually got all these other issues as well for the runtime issue. So you add those up. It's actually probably about 6 hours to 8 hours to fix these particular issues manually, if you've done it before and know what you're doing. I've never actually successfully fixed them manually, by the way. I always get it wrong some way. I'm a bit, So here we go. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to select all those issues. Now what's fun now, because at the top, I selected the issues, it's the Fix It button. Right? So what I'm going to do, is anybody going to help me on the next piece here? Should I just fix the issues? Should I just do that? What time? Okay. We're all getting a bit bored, right? I mean, we were talking about 40,000 hours worth of work, and we're going to do it in a couple minutes, right? So what I'm going to do is just press the Fix It button. And I'm just going to show you what's happening in the background. So we immediately make a backup. We're taking all those issues, now updating the package, we're creating a transform, we're generating. Now what's interesting about this is we're going to do a double take. We said, we're really sure about this. We've done it a couple 100,000 times. Really good. I'm going to double check for this package to make sure each individual fix doesn't break anything else. And I'm going to rerun the reports on that application to double check everything. This is just us being a little bit, got to get this right? So as a function of that, so we've got our application. It's now loaded back in, reports rerun, no issues. We fixed all the issues, and you've got a transform there as well. So we've actually created, and what you see on the desktop here, your external cabs and your transform, we completely fixed all those issues for that particular application, roughly about 5-10 seconds, which is pretty cool, right? So you got 1,000 apps, you can do it in a couple of days. I'll show you something that's a little bit more fun. You can actually look exactly who did what, and each fix is reversible. You can go back in time. So when's the last time you had a project where you had a full documentation of all the issues, and every single step that was taken was reversible before you shipped to UAT? So people say, what did you guys do today? There you go, right? Fantastic, got a bit of timestamp there, imported successfully, fixed it. So basically, now what we're doing is we've elevated, the quality, because we're now saying, there's always have to be a compromise in IT, right? And say, okay, to fix this application will take us 6 weeks. Your boss will probably say, you've got 2 days, right? So you make a compromise. We're saying, no, there's no compromise anymore. We can actually fix these things to the highest level possible. And one of the things we've actually done is codify all the experience of Accenture, Microsoft engineers, all their partners, hundreds of thousands of apps, our clients. And now what you actually get is the best of all that, compiled and put into code, and done through the automation. Okay. Does that make sense for everybody? Just loaded an app in, oh, yep, absolutely.
Is there a list of apps it fixes?
Well, actually, no, there's a really good question. So the question is, so everybody can hear, is there a list of apps, probably known issues and fixes? If I might expand that? Yeah, okay.
I mean, it sounds amazing, but...
It is, it really is. It does.
I mean, even the human being would have trouble fixing a lot of these apps.
Absolutely. In fact, as a person, some of them you can't. There's 2 questions that you said as a human being. To fix some of these issues manually because of the tools and validation and verification tools to create the fixes aren't available. As a person, it's almost impossible. Right? You can't. I've tried. I really have tried, right? And I've failed. And I'm not a complete loser, but I'm on the middle spectrum of being a loser or not, right? And I can. So actually, coming back to your initial question, Is there a list of apps and fixes? The answer for me is definitely not. We don't want to do that. There's a really, really good reason why. Because Adobe Reader 9, right? Does it work? If I said yes, but under what conditions? Do you have a lockdown environment? Are you using Active Directory? What's your GPOs in your environment? It's not the app, it's the environment. And that's why you need to run all the checks. So I could say your app works under these 6 conditions. And that's one of the reasons why the social networks and the act compatibility sort of community says, aha, this app works. Well, there's 2 major issues with that. First of all, it worked for them. My environment, by definition, though it uses the same basic platform, is completely different. Right? So it's going to be a different question. The second is the list of apps, one, gets quickly outdated, right? But it probably doesn't include the most important apps for my business. And that's my internal, what I call LOB, or internal applications, line of business applications. By definition, it can't, right? So if you're looking at these things and you go, oh, Adobe Reader, that's fine. I see the WinZip, and that looks good. OK, those are good. I can take those off the list. You could probably get 2 or 3% of your portfolio if you wanted to choose that. But the risk would be really high, because who knows what they're actually relating to. And do you trust somebody else and their view? And who are they? And how experienced are they? Right. So there's some, and I don't want to throw too much fun in that list. So what we've actually done is say, well, actually, no, ignore that. Because it's so quick, because it's so easy, load them into the ChangeBASE tool, run the reports, and get the right answer for your environment. Does that answer that for you?
See?
Yeah. Oh, one sec. He was first. Go ahead.
I think it's an interesting product, but we looked at products like this. We looked at DNA.
Certainly, yeah.
It struck me that, well, we tried to set up management for something that we should have a team looking at and running this thing sort of habitually. But they weren't sold on it because they thought that we could remediate packages that we have just manually. And just listening to what you're saying today, it struck me that this is like a user-initiated thing. You run the report, you add application management. But have you considered running it as a service? So it hooks up to AD and SCCM, all your streaming applications, and it would just monitor what was going on. Because in reality, the environment we have just changes
Continuously, absolutely. And I'm just going to, I think we get your, so the real question is, would you use it as almost like as a service, but also monitoring continuously the flow of applications through your platform, really?
We couldn't think it with enough information to make it really give us the answers that were representative in our environment. But if you had it hooking up with all the other automated systems that we have in place, we're
Yeah.
coming to work with more, and it would give you a bullet-listed things the fixes that you could apply that have the most impact on that particular event or that work.
I get that, and I think there's some stuff there. Okay, there's one, we've got a dashboard, which I haven't showed here, which will show some of that. Some of our customers have used there's like a directory watcher tool. So if you have like a packaging environment with people working over here, it goes into a central area. They've actually automatically put in the packages. It reloads and rescans and reruns the reports for them. They've got a patch checker process that goes through on Patch Tuesdays. When the patches come from Microsoft, that gets automated. It's an email to you as well. So within about 4 hours of the patches being released, your entire portfolio would be analyzed. And here's the most important patches with the, so you can do that, absolutely. One of the things, if you look at the app DNA tools, one of the things I mentioned earlier, which I think is a super critical point here, is that we created a loading, reporting, and fixing platform. And the question you said was, we couldn't put enough information or ask the right questions, right, because it's always changing. Well, with this set of tools, you can actually create your own rules and groups and all your own questions and automated fixes. In fact, we had BP, we put 8,600 applications in, straight to UAT after this, by the way, that created their own quality assessment checks. So not only did it do app compat, did the QA check, did the QA fixes, and went to UAT. And that was an automated loop process. So it wasn't user-initiated, but it was a complete autonomous process from IT right to UAT. So I think what you need to do really is, if you get some more time, hopefully after, we can have to spend a few moments, but the idea is create your own questions, tailor it for your environment, and you can automate almost the entire process from initiate, report, fix. Does that help? Go ahead, sorry.
You touched on going from Office 2003 to Ken.
Yeah.
We're in the midst of a migration now, and one of the big factors we call shadow apps.
Yeah.
The-
Yes.
Yeah, all the tools that our investment group uses for modeling and predictions, and a lot of macros and VBA scripts just handle that sort of a conversion as well.
Not so much. There's a group called Converter Technology that does macros. What we would do, and I'm just going to repeat the question so everybody can hear. So the question was, we're talking about the migration, not Windows 7, but Office 2003 to 2007, 2010. Probably you're going 2010 now?
Yeah.
Okay.
All together.
Well, there's a whole bunch of things that can go wrong, and this really surprised us. Like, in fact, I was at a client, and I said to the guys, okay, so Windows 7, how's it going? Yep, good virtualization, good. Oh, by the way, a third of our apps don't work. And I was like, why? I went, well, they were a legal firm, and they had massive dependencies upon a particular version of Word. Their entire application portfolio uses Word as its sort of spine, right? So we looked at that, and we actually found there's a whole series of classes of issues that the change in version of Office would include. The macros, which we work with Converter Technology on, but also there's directory structures, registry assumptions, right? Settings, shared files, all that. Those will change, and we've actually got some reports. Isn't this right? I just literally popped up the demo earlier on, and my key expired. I'm going to show you this here. It should be Office 2010. You get these type of issues here. You can look at deprecated components, API structures, directory structures. That's just for 2010. If you're going from 2003 to 2007, it's a big jump. There's lots of work. If you're going from 2007 to 2010, it's not so much work. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the reports are there, and they actually do have an impact. There's a lot of organizations that are document-centric, and these will definitely help.
So if there's more questions about ChangeBASE, we're downstairs. We can stay here and answer your questions. And I quickly wanted to do the remainder of the demo about
Sure.
vWorkspace for the last 5 minutes.
Okay. Should I was unplugged, shall I?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can keep that on.
Oh,
Just
there you are.
super. Thank you.
Let's get back to it.
Sorry for the changing of devices, but he's trying to convince me to switch to a Mac, and he hasn't succeeded yet. So.
One Windows guy running the Mac.
So let me. There you go. So what I wanted to show you for the last 5 minutes is a quick demo of Quest vWorkspace. I had some slides on what vWorkspace is, but when I was standing there, I was thinking maybe it's easier for me to ask you guys who knows Quest vWorkspace. Okay. There's basically, in the desktop virtualization market, there's 3 main products. In any order you like. It's vWorkspace, it's Citrix XenApp, and Desktop, and there's VMware View. VMware View is kind of the odd man out because they don't believe in terminal services or remote desktop session host, where Citrix and Quest do. So if you know those products, we're similar, right? We provide similar functionality. And what I want to show you now is a new version of Quest vWorkspace. It's version 7.6. This is the first time we've shown this publicly in the world, so it'll probably break, so forgive me if I do. So I'm just going to connect to our management console. And it's a little hazy, but I hope you can see. So this is our management console. I'm sure that you'll wonder if you don't know vWorkspace. Well, if you're like VMware View and if you're like Citrix, XenApp, and Desktop, how are you different? Well, that's a really long story. But one of the things that's very important to us is that we know that the promise of desktop virtualization can only be exploited if you make sure that you make best use of the benefits that it offers. And what I mean by that is that VDI and/or terminal server has the ability to provide you with many management benefits. So, for example, you can manage 20,000 desktops from one console, or you can provision 100 desktops in 4 minutes. Things that you can't do with traditional computing, right? If you give everybody a laptop, right? That's just the way it is. I know Brian violently disagrees that VDI wasn't invented to save money, and I agree with that. But I think you can save money with desktop virtualization, and you will if you do it right. So one of the things that we focused on is providing, using the characteristics of desktop virtualization to save on management. And one incarnation of that is the fact that we have one single management console. So if you have 250 terminal servers and 50 Hyper-V hosts and 8 VMware hosts and 20,000 virtual desktops, it's still one management console. You create them from here, you manage the users from here, you assign resources from here. So I can tell you from a product management perspective, it's not the easiest job to put everything in one console, but we truly think that improves the management experience. One of the other things that we've done, and I'm going to use our quick start wizard to create something called a desktop cloud. So within vWorkspace, you can use a desktop cloud to very quickly provision, any number of virtual desktops, depending on your hardware, of course, and manage them really efficiently. So in this case, the background noise that you hear is our server that's buzzing over there. But it's really very easy to deploy and create and manage virtual desktops. So in this case, you need to have a connection broker, which we already have. We directly integrate with Hyper-V, so you can use completely free Hyper-V server to go out and create your virtual desktops. And next you have to create the desktop cloud, so the management entity for all those virtual desktops. So let's just call this guy BriForum 2012. Then you have to specify an administrative account because we need to do a bunch of stuff to the virtual desktops that we create. Remember our Ulta secret password. So now we've created desktop cloud, and we are going to decide how much desktops do we want in this cloud. So you can specify the size of the desktop, and it will automatically grow if there's more demand, those kinds of things. And so we'll just go ahead and create 10 Windows 7 virtual desktops. And next, the final mandatory step, if you like, is to provide the provisioning settings, which basically means what template do you want to use, right? We're using a lot of special technologies all linked together. So we create Microsoft differencing disks from the template itself. Let's just provide it with a name. That's fine. That's fine. So what it will do now, it will go out to the connection broker and say, okay, you have to create 10 Windows 7 virtual desktops for me. And that's just a regular server. I'm not sure if Paul is here. What kind of hardware is in there? I have no idea, but.
Not sure really.
Okay. Yeah, well, as you can see, it's not the state-of-the-art Blade Cisco CEO with SSD storage. It's just a regular old server. And what we have, what's special in this case, and it's another example of how we want to exploit the characteristics of desktop virtualization to allow people to be more successful. So we drive down the cost of desktop virtualization by something in this case we call hypercache, which is a technology that reduces the I/O that you need to create, maintain, and run virtual desktops by about 90%. Because we have a patent pending in-memory technology that allows you to do that. So whilst the provisioning those 10 virtual desktops, you can see that we actually go beyond the desktop in the sense that when it's provisioned, we also realize that it's important that your user identity roams with you wherever you go. This is a pooled desktop scenario that I'm showing you here. Of course, it's very important that you maintain your user identity, so your application settings and your Windows settings, and that they roam with you. So we have our own built-in profile management solution that's been in our product for a very long time. So you could say, I want to save the Windows appearance settings. You could say, I want to save my Office settings and my Adobe settings. And those will roam with you from that point on. You also have the ability to do desktop management tasks. So for all the computers in that group, or some of them, you can perform system management tasks like, power management, logging off users at a certain schedule, or rebooting virtual machines, changing the memory, reprovisioning them, copy a file to it. Basically anything you want, you can do from within vWorkspace. We're not going to do that now. So then we have what we call built-in user environment management. So this helps IT shape the desktop on the inside, the way they want it to look. So for example, you can create a drive mapping, or you can make sure that certain applications aren't allowed to run in that desktop, or the other way around. You can make sure that all applications except one of them can be run, or other restrictions. You can do drive mapping, set environment variables, map printers, all the the little things that in the end make sure that the desktop and the inside looks like or at least has the facilities that IT wants to provision to it. So that's something you can do. The printer management, already mentioned earlier, we also have universal printer technology so that you don't have to do any printer driver maintenance on your terminal servers and on your virtual desktops and on your templates. So that's completely hassle-free. And finally, you can set policies. So you can control what virtual channels are used inside the session. So you might not want client drive redirection to be available if you're connecting from outside of the office using a MacBook or something. There's a complete set of rules that you can provide to make sure that it doesn't happen. So now let's look at our success here. So this is our group, our virtual desktop group, and you can see that the 10 virtual desktops have been created. I know this sounds rigged because I could have done that before, but trust me, I didn't. And you can see that using our technology, those 10 virtual desktops, to create them, it took about less than 3 minutes. So those are 10 virtual desktops. There's a bunch of technologies that are important in that. Hypercache is one of the most important. If you take a look, there's actually a report in there that shows you just how much I/O you're saving. So in this case, I think it says 88. Yeah, so we saved about 88% of all I/O, serving them from the hypercache. And as I showed you, it doesn't require a rocket scientist to set this up. You just provision virtual desktops in a vWorkspace desktop cloud, and you'll automatically get hypercache. There's no priming. You don't have to create it. You don't have to purge it. It just works. Right? It's a benefit of using a vWorkspace. The far cloud for virtual desktops product you can see over here. So this is our dashboard. Let me make it a little bit bigger over here. So this shows you your environment. How it's running, what the load is. If there are known problems. So it gives you an overview of all your brokers, other servers, virtual desktops, Hyper-V. So it gives you complete insight and an overview in your environment. And finally, I wanted to show that when users are connected, we only have one user connected here, so this is a session host session, but you also have your VDI session. You can see a lot of information about the user that's connecting, including the bandwidth and the latency, what kind of device it is. So in this case, it's a Windows connector, but if it's an Android connector or an iPad connector, we have connectors for all those platforms. You can use those as well, and you can allow or disallow access based on that. Just get the sign that we're horribly over time, so if you want to see more of vWorkspace, we have a booth downstairs, and you can visit that there. The book, how are we going to do this? If you can buy our booth, then we'll decide who gets it, because we have no time for questions. Before you leave, though, everybody will get a non-signed copy by a beautiful assistant. So thank you for your time, and sorry for being late. Thank you.